The battle, an army lost to itself. Karánsebes, 1788. Imagine commanding a massive imperial army, tens of thousands of soldiers, ready to face the Ottoman Empire, and then losing the battle before the enemy even arrives, not because of superior tactics, not because of a brilliant ambush, but because your troops get into an argument over alcohol, panic in the dark, and start shooting each other. This is the story of Karánsebes, 1788. Often called one of history's most disastrous friendly fire incidents. And it's a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous weapon on the battlefield is confusion. We are in Eastern Europe during the Austro-Turkish War of the late 1780s. The Habsburg Empire, often described as a patchwork of peoples and languages, fields a huge army to fight the Ottomans. On paper, this army looks impressive: large numbers, experienced officers, a powerful empire behind it. But paper strength and battlefield reality are not the same thing. That diversity was the empire's strength, and, in this story, a ticking time bomb. Because the Austrian army wasn't one unified group with one language, it was a mix. Germans, Hungarians, Croats, Italians, Romanians, Serbs, and more. Some soldiers barely understood the command shouted by their own officers. Others recognized only tone, not words. In daylight, discipline could hold things together. At night, everything became fragile. And on one tense evening near the town of Karánsebes in modern-day Romania, everything that could go wrong did. Quick honesty check. Historians debate the exact details. The incident is widely discussed, but some numbers and dramatic moments get exaggerated in retellings. There are no perfect records, no clean battle reports, only scattered accounts, later summaries, and the undeniable fact that something went very wrong. What most accounts agree on is this: Austrian troops were camped and scouting ahead. There was darkness, poor coordination, high stress. A confrontation broke out inside the Austrian forces. Panic spread fast. Friendly fire erupted, and the aftermath was chaos enough that Ottoman forces later benefited from it. So think of Karánsebes less as a clean battle and more as a chain reaction disaster unfolding inside a nervous army. Picture the scene. It is late, September 1788. The Austrian army is moving through unfamiliar terrain near the Timok River. The weather is unpredictable. The ground is uneven. The landscape is filled with forests, hills, and narrow crossings. They are tired. Supplies are strained. Everyone expects an Ottoman attack at any moment. Every shadow feels hostile. Every sound feels too loud. Now, add a key detail. Reconnaissance cavalry, often hussars, are sent ahead to scout. Their job is to find the enemy before the enemy finds the main army. They find something. Not enemy soldiers. They find local merchants. And the merchants are selling something that has started more trouble in history than swords ever did. Alcohol. Some versions say schnapps. Some say brandy. Either way, the scouts buy it. It is not just a drink. It is warmth. It is relief. It is a moment of normal life in the middle of a campaign where death feels close. For a short time, the tension fades, but then infantry units arrive. They want in. The scouts do not want to share. And that is where the fuse gets lit. The infantry asks for a drink. The cavalry says no. Words are exchanged. Voices rise. Pride gets involved. The argument escalates. Shouting, pushing, threats. This is no longer about alcohol. It is about status, stress, and resentment between different branches of the army. Some accounts claim someone fires a shot into the air. Maybe it was accidental. Maybe it was meant as a warning. Maybe someone was already drunk and thought they were funny. No one knows for sure. What matters is what happens next. That single crack in the dark flips the entire camp from tense to terrified. Because in a war zone, a gunshot at night doesn't sound like a warning. It sounds like an attack. It sounds like the worst fear everyone has been carrying in their chest. It sounds like they are here. Now it gets terrifyingly human. Somebody yells something like, "The Turks!" In one part of the army, that shout makes perfect sense. In another part, it doesn't. Imagine you are a soldier who doesn't speak that language well. You hear yelling. You hear gunfire. You see shapes moving between tents and wagons. You are exhausted. Your nerves are shot. You have been told for days that an Ottoman attack is imminent. Your brain doesn't wait for evidence. It fills in the blanks with your worst fear. So units begin to form up in confusion. Someone runs, another follows. Someone trips, gets up, and fires into the darkness at movement they can't identify. Now, other units hear gunfire and assume the Ottomans are attacking. This is how panic spreads, not like a wave, but like fire in dry grass. Here is the nightmare. In a large camp, the moment firing starts, everyone tries to respond. Croats. But respond to what? Nobody has clear information. Nobody has a full picture. Orders are shouted, but half the soldiers don't understand the words. Others misunderstand the direction. So you get a chain reaction. One unit fires toward noise. Another unit returns fire. A third unit assumes both are enemy. Officers shout commands that echo uselessly into the dark. Horses bolt, wagons crash. Men stumble, fall, and are trampled. Horses bolt, wagons crash. Men stumble, fall, and are trampled. At this point, it doesn't matter whether the Ottomans are present or not, because the Austrian army is now fighting an enemy made of shadow, echo, and misunderstanding. Some retellings say artillery even fired into the chaos, either by mistake or because commanders genuinely believed they were stopping an enemy breakthrough. And once cannons fire, forget it. Nobody thinks maybe we should verify. They think we are being overrun. This is where sources vary wildly. Some accounts give relatively small numbers, hundreds of casualties. Other retellings claim thousands, even up to around 10,000. That higher figure is heavily questioned by many historians. So what can we responsibly say? We can say there were real casualties from friendly fire, confusion, and the chaos afterward. We can say there were losses from soldiers scattering, getting separated, drowning in rivers or marshy ground, or being caught alone later. And regardless of the exact number, the incident devastated morale and organization at a critical moment. Even the best-case version is still a catastrophic loss of control, and in war, losing control is often the beginning of losing everything else. By morning, the Austrian camp is a mess. Units are scattered, command structures are shaken, some soldiers are missing, supplies are disrupted, trust is gone, and now comes the tragic punchline. Shupst is gone, and now comes the tragic punchline. Ottoman forces eventually arrive in the area and encounter the aftermath, an army that has already battered itself. Different sources describe the Ottomans taking advantage and capturing the town soon after. So even if the battle was mostly Austrians shooting Austrians, the strategic benefit goes to the Ottomans. In the cold logic of war, if your enemy collapses on their own, you don't argue with the gift. It is tempting to laugh at this story like it is a slapstick sketch. Ha! They fought themselves! But the real lesson isn't that soldiers were stupid. The real lesson is that systems fail. This incident sits at the intersection of exhaustion and stress. Poor communication. A multilingual army without unified command clarity. Night operations with limited visibility. And the psychological expectation of attack. Human brains under fear do not behave like calm historians. They behave like survival machines that would rather be wrong than dead. And on a battlefield full of noise and darkness, that instinct can be lethal. Friendly fire hasn't disappeared. Modern militaries have radios, infrared, GPS, identification systems. And still, confusion kills. Because technology reduces uncertainty, but never deletes it. Karánsebes is just an extreme, almost absurd example of something deeply real. When information collapses, people don't stop acting. They act faster, And that is why militaries obsess over communication, identification, and discipline, especially at night. Karánsebes is remembered because it is bizarre, almost unbelievable. But it is also remembered because it exposes something uncomfortable. War isn't only decided by weapons or bravery. Sometimes it is decided by whether an exhausted person in the dark hears the right word from the right person at the right time. And sometimes, through sheer chaos, an army defeats itself. Not with strategy, not with a genius plan, just with panic.